Welcome back to Touch and Bases podcast. Today is Mariner Monday. Today I have Dane Gonzales with Locked On Mariners joining me today. So we get a little bit of more of a professional look at in-depth stories that have popped up since spring training has started for pitchers and catchers. So Ty, thank you for joining me, and we should just dive right into it. I want to talk about, it's not Mariner related, but it could potentially affect the Mariners later on down the road, and that is the Bregman signing with Boston Red Sox. They were pretty much giving up on Bregman, and the whole fan base was. Now all of a sudden they sign him, so Arenado has nowhere to go. I know you guys talked about Arenado possibly being an opportunity, like an option later on, but I think Cubs, Yankees, Phillies, Blue Jays, they're all teams that could look into bringing him in, and if they do, who's available at this point? Because that could also mean that the Mariners could pick somebody up because they have to push somebody out.
Yeah, so Arenado right now, I mean, kind of seems like he's out of options for the moment. It seems like this might be a discussion that doesn't pick back up until around the trade deadline. It makes sense because it's a really complicated situation. You got a player who's clearly on the decline offensively. I have heard some good things about what he's done this offseason, and there is some thought that he might be able to be a little bit better, probably not get back to, the Nolan Arenado that we know and love, but be a bit better than he has been the last couple of years. But obviously that's a concern. And then there's all that money, and then there's the deferred money, which is a really complicated obstacle to overcome for a lot of teams. So yeah, I mean, now that Boston's out, I mean, the Mets would make sense, but the Mets also just paid Pete Alonso for at least this season. So are they willing to spend even more, because they were already publicly talking about how, which is weird that Steve Cohen was almost crying poor. But yeah, they were already kind of complaining about spending money when it came to Alonso. So are they willing to spend more money on Arenado? I don't know. But Arenado clearly wants to play on a coast. He said that. So I don't think the Tigers, who lost out on Bregman, makes sense. It's probably a team that he wouldn't waive his no trade clause for like he did with Houston. So yeah, I mean, Seattle makes sense, but the conversation is the same as always when it comes to any player that's making over the league minimum, really. With the Mariners, it's are they actually going to be willing to spend that money? And knowing what we know about their budget right now, Nolan Arenado is 1,000,000% beyond what they're probably willing to spend right now. So I don't see that as a fit right now either.
Well, that makes it a big issue, is the fact that mostly all of our players that cost a lot of money don't seem to have a lot of trade value to them. You're looking at Garver, you look at Haniger, you're looking at, I mean, Castillo is probably our best, but this front office is not, I mean, they're not giving up Castillo unless they get a haul back, because they know that's kind of their only option as far as, and I'm assuming it's got to include a pitcher, because who's filling that number 5 role if we say Castillo is our number 5 guy as far as talent wise?
Yeah, they very clearly don't view Emerson Hancock as that guy, nor should they, in my opinion. But they clearly
Colby's convinced you that.
Right.
Yeah. You just heard him. You heard him enough to where you're like, all right, I believe you.
It's been drilled in my brain so much that I just finally gave in. Yeah, I mean, apparently Hancock's been working on some stuff, and he's got some new stuff that he might be showing off here in the spring, but I don't know. We'll see. But yeah, clearly they don't think that Hancock's that guy, and there's just too much of an unknown with Logan Evans.
I was going to ask you about him, right, because they keep going back and forth between relief and starters. So I mean, have you heard anything as far as he's going to be a starter? He's going to be a reliever? What's the goal?
They tried the reliever thing, and what I heard was that's not something that they actually want to do with him. They tried it didn't really work out. I think it's really, he just doesn't have one dominant pitch that stands out. He doesn't really have the stuff for it. Honestly, the thing that I've heard about Evans from people that know way more than I would about the situation is that he's probably more in the Emerson Hancock range of pitchers rather than the Bryce Miller, Brent Wu range, which is that's how Jerry DiPoto was kind of selling him last year when Colby and I talked to him on our show. Jerry kind of made it sound like Logan Evans was their next great find, but and it seems like they have like done some really good stuff with him, but it doesn't seem like he's like that next dude that's like kind of following in those footsteps of like, again, like I said, like a Wu or a Miller who just kind of came out of nowhere.
Like plateaued last year, and he just we haven't seen an increase since then. So we're
Yeah,
like, wait, you were on track
yeah,
to be a Wu Miller, and what happened?
yeah. So, yeah, I don't know specifically like what it is. Yeah, I'm not watching every Logan Evans start or anything like that, and I
Don't blame you.
yeah, but you know, and I try to keep up with people who are more in the know on that front. But yeah, I don't know specifically what it is that they saw that they just feel is, um, kind of holding him back from that. But yeah, it does seem like he's more kind of in that like Hancock group of pitchers right now for them.
So if we were to, if they were, I'm assuming they're going to wait until the trade deadline just because of the fact that they have what 4 mil left to spend.
Yeah,
If that's
yeah,
accurate, I mean, I would like to think that maybe it's a little lower than what was expected. Given there's been a couple of transactions or a couple of signings that took place that make me think that maybe we have a little bit more money, but we're not saying anything about that right now. But if we're waiting until the trade deadline, it's like, okay, so who's on the chopping block? It's got to be Castillo, and if we do send him somewhere, we have to be getting a pitcher back, and it has to be what someone slightly worse than Castillo's numbers last year, because the idea would be not just getting rid of his contract, but also bringing a bat or a future bat. Because I
hmm.
mean, that's what makes it so complicated. Is we're going to be asking so much for.
I mean, what you're kind of describing is like with Boston, had they actually made a trade with Boston, it probably would have been Cutter Crawford, or that's who they were probably angling for.
And then Boston was
So
like, "Here's Yoshida," and we're like, "What?
yeah,
No."
yeah, yeah, no, no, that's not at all what we're talking about here. Yeah, yeah. So, yeah, I would say just someone in that kind of like range, that kind of mold, like the Cutter Crawfords of the world. It's
Mhm.
probably what they're looking for on top of whatever bat they're trying to get for Castillo. It's a very very specific criteria that they're trying to meet that I don't think that exists.
I haven't seen a team that has that. I mean, Boston was probably the most I, in the closest option, but that was before Solano. So
Well, and even if a team does have that, I don't think they're willing to meet those demands.
they got to be desperate enough, which I'm
Yeah.
I mean, if you're talking desperate teams, we're looking at teams that are worried about grievances being filed against them for salary, and that rolls
Yeah.
down to what 3 teams, and one team said we don't even care, and that's the Marlins. They're like, eh,
Yeah.
we don't
Yeah.
care,
Yeah.
which is
Yeah.
crazy. So
Yeah. So, and that's kind of like eliminated some interesting ideas that, you could have when it comes to the Mariners and maybe like Mitch Haniger or what have you. So,
well, and that's the thing. I was looking at Arenado's like contract. Like if something were to happen with St. Louis, I honestly him and like Luis Robert are 2 players that I think have a lot more in the tank that people really give them credit for. And I think it's more of the environment that they're in. Like if I made a video recently, what last week about the Cardinals situation and all the stuff that's been going around as far as Jim Edmonds' comments on the organization, the fact that Arenado a couple seasons back asked for Mark McGuire to come to spring training to help with his swing, and they were like, no, 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 you're going to go with our guys that we want in this club, and it's like
mhm.
it's just not a good atmosphere for them, and I feel like that's the
Yeah.
same thing for Chicago as well.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, like now with Arenado, like his buddy Goldschmidt is in New York. Like he feels like there's nothing left for me
No,
here in
no,
St. Louis. Yeah, so so I don't blame him for wanting to get the hell up out of there. But I just I don't. I think he messed up probably not waiving that no trade clause to go to Houston.
I'm glad he didn't though.
No, I'm
I mean,
glad
for
I'm
us,
glad to. Yeah, I'm
for
glad
our
to
sake.
because I feel like if there's one place that he's going to turn his career around in, probably Houston with Crawford
With
boxes, all
Crawford
that.
boxes or Red
Yeah,
Sox, like those are the 2 places I was
yeah,
like, oh
yeah.
yeah.
But yeah, I do wonder if like he looks back on that decision and like if he could do that again, would he have actually waived his no trade clause? It's
Well, that's the
interesting.
thing about his contract. Like the deferred payments is like till what 2044 or something, which
Yeah, something crazy like that.
it's only 2 mil though. Like I know nobody wants to deal with that. Well, Cardinals
Yeah.
did at the time, but it's not that's not bad. And considering inflation in 10 years from now, like would I mean, I guess it's
Yeah.
Stanton, but is Stanton going to be the owner in 2044? I don't know.
Well, it's not just Stanton. It's most MLB owners are like, oh, I'm not,
Don't want to pay
unless
for
you're
that
the
forever.
Dodgers. Like, yeah, you're not going to put that on your books. You're not going to put any sort of financial commitment beyond, like 20 years beyond now, on your books.
Yeah.
So,
Or the Rockies. Rockies did it clearly.
yeah.
So they were able, but again, I think you and I agree the Rockies have the weirdest front office decision making ever.
Yeah.
And
Weirdest, stupidest,
I mean,
what name? Yeah.
I will give them credit because they have tried to get big names at the time. It's just 2020 hindsight when you look at players now. Like Chris Bryant, we did not expect Chris Bryant to be terrible, and then Trevor Story was great, but then he got traded to the Sox, and then he kind of, injury. So I, it's just they're almost like the Angels where they make changes and moves that seem big and then they fall on their face. I think the Angels ruled that right now. They're number one because of Rendon, especially since he just got put on the 60-day IL on the first day of everybody showing up to spring training.
Yeah. Of course he did.
Yeah, of course he did. Well, and that was the thing though. Like I just made a video on that specifically, and I think I may have jumped the gun because one of the beat writers for the Angels, Max something, he mentioned like maybe this is actually a move by the Angels organization and not by Anthony Rendon himself because of certain not only insurance policies if there is one that exists, but
Mm.
if they put him on the IL on a specific date, then there's some sort of contract
I see.
manipulation.
I see. Yeah.
Then that's a possibility. But
Yeah, I'm not sure about that, but I mean that contract's been a literal disaster.
oh
So
yeah,
yeah,
like 2019, everything before that, this guy is Hall of Fame, and then he hasn't played more than what 62 games since 2019.
he just clearly doesn't
He
like
doesn't
baseball.
he doesn't want to play, and he's openly
Yeah.
said it. But it's like they're
Well,
thinking maybe they put him on the 60-day IL because it's like, all right, now everybody's reporting in. They just don't want him in the clubhouse. They're just like, just stay away from
yeah.
everybody.
Well, and plus they've had to answer questions about him. They've had to deal with his nonsense in the clubhouse. There was that time where he tried to fight a fan in Oakland and all that. Like,
Oh yeah,
it's just too much going on with him that
yeah.
like the organization has to deal with for all that money that they're spending to and really no return whatsoever on the field.
So let's
Yeah.
do this. You and I will go into T-Mobile Park and we'll go knock on the front office door and be like, hey,
Mhm.
Nolan Arenado is available. Yeah, you have to pay him 2 mil till 2044 in
Yeah.
deferments, but hey, you still get him till 2028, and they might be able to take some of the money off, but we get a good bat. Now, would you rather have Arenado or would you rather have Rendon? Seems like a good contract now. So
Right.
let's
Yeah.
let's bring
Yeah.
him in. I mean, I'm
Yeah.
okay with
Yeah. Yeah.
the 272 batting average. I understand he's not hitting bombs like he used to, but I mean, I've been preaching this for the last few weeks now on a couple of these episodes. Is I'm perfectly okay with the front office maybe shifting their mindset, which it sounds like they might be, given that Edgar Martinez is back, Dan Wilson's back, and looking at that 2001 116 win team, like there was three guys that hit double digit home runs. One of them was on steroids, and the rest of them hit over 260. Everybody on that team. Like, what if we do
Mm.
cater like the Royals do to Kauffman Stadium and get high batting average base hit hitters and roll with
Right.
it?
Which is the idea with Solano.
Exactly.
Which was the idea with Justin Turner.
And that was the
Right.
light bulb that came on for me. It was like,
Yeah.
oh, maybe.
And Robles obviously
Yeah.
was that guy too. And I think that kind of has to be, and this kind of just goes beyond just batting average in general, but I get what you're saying. It's just putting the ball in play, making things happen with your athleticism, all that. That's really the meta of successful offense in T-Mobile Park.
Yeah.
It's probably what it is.
Yeah.
Right. you're not going to win a ton of games just swinging for the fences at that stadium.
You could
So
try.
you can try, but they have
If you're a
tried.
lefty, then go for it.
Yeah, if you have a if you have a team full of, Max Muncies and Jordan Alvarez's, etc., then sure. But yeah, the name of the game is like putting the ball in play and really letting and being an athletic club and being a run prevention club, which
The pitching's doing a good job there. Bitch, our bullpen's been
pitching's
hurt.
doing a good job. Yeah,
Yeah.
you would like to see them be a little bit better defensively, though. Like,
Yeah. I mean, Dylan Moore was good, but
which
when
makes
you have no bat,
yeah, which makes the Polanco thing interesting, that they're willingly going, okay, we're going to sacrifice defense here for the hope that we actually get something more out of the bat than we got out of Rojas last year.
yeah. And I don't know, man. Like, I think you mentioned it, patella tendon surgeries. Like, I don't know the recovery on the baseball side of things, but that's
Yeah.
that's a big defensive restriction. And then how much does that affect your swing? And especially with Blanco being a switch hitter, like those are two different movements. Like, was it the left or right leg?
I don't know. I
I
don't know
don't.
specifically.
So
yeah.
which one is it
That's
going
the
to
other
be
thing.
affected?
So that matters a lot, because obviously if it's his left, he's going to be going to his left quite a bit more so than he's going to be going to his right.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's yeah. I mean, it doesn't seem like it was like a complete tear or anything like that, because I mean, one, he was playing through it,
Yeah.
and then two, apparently he's healthy now. So we'll see. But yeah, it's obviously something that you have to be concerned about. I mean, for me, the only times that I've heard patella tendon, and patella tendon injury, like Jimmy Graham, Will Disley, both of the Seahawks, both of those injuries significantly changed the trajectory of those guys' careers. So that's obviously football, but
Yeah.
that's still that's a more serious injury than like ACLs
Yeah.
nowadays. So yeah, you have to wonder about that. And obviously this isn't the only injury that Polanco's suffered over the last few years. So and we
I
had
think
already
it's
seen
more of a
decline with
number
that.
thing. That's also, I think, a number
Yeah.
thing though. Like, if they're like, okay, well, Rojas is in Chicago now, so
Mhm.
what do we do? Let's bring back Polanco, give him incentives to do good, and if he doesn't do good, we don't spend a lot of money. But if we, maybe we're hoping to get the worst year he's had besides 2020, because I don't want to count half a season, and last year. If we can get that guy back when he's healthy, then it's 4 times better than Yon Moncada, I guess.
Yeah. Well, yeah, the Mancada thing too, that's an even greater risk.
But yeah, well, the last
So,
4 years have been terrible, and I think I
and
made
at the
that
very
argument too.
and at the
Online.
very least with Polanco, you know him, and
Yeah.
it seems like they feel that he was a good fit in their clubhouse and within their structure, so they do know that about him. They don't know anything about Mancada. Plus, Mancada, I don't know how severe it was, but he did get hurt down in the Winter League. So
Oh, he did. I didn't know about that.
yeah.
What?
So
Do you know what it
I
was?
remember. I don't know. I remember just seeing a video on Twitter of him getting like helped off the field.
Oh, so
I don't think it was. Yeah, I don't think it was. I don't think it was super serious though, considering that he did actually get signed still, and there were teams that were still interested in him. But yeah, like I don't know. You just can't really trust him to stay healthy. And again, he wasn't. He hasn't been good since 2021. At least Polanco is less far removed from his last good season.
Yeah, yeah. Well, we did just sign a pitcher that hasn't played in the major leagues in like 4 years. So
Yeah.
I think he's eligible for Hall of Fame in 2 years. But
Yeah, Neftali
yeah,
Feliz.
Feliz. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, you mentioned Solano, so I was kind of curious on that. And given that he is a much better hitter against, it seemed from left against lefties. He's switch hitter, right? Or is he righty?
Solano.
Yeah.
Solano, no, he's just a righty.
He's just righty. Okay, I was gonna say if he was switch hitter, maybe it would make a difference. But him being a righty going against, left-handed pitching, do you think those numbers are going to translate in T-Mobile? Given,
Yeah, because he's an up the middle, just pure contact hitter.
yeah,
Solano. The reason that I've liked Solano so much is just because I haven't really understood why his market has never been really anything other than like, here's a couple $1,000,000 on a 1-year deal. Come hit for us. When, look, I get it. He's a part-time player who doesn't hit for a ton of power and probably should only play first base or DH. So there's obviously a limit on that. But he rakes.
Mm-hmm.
He just rakes and rakes and rakes. I mean, he's been doing this pretty consistently since 2019.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, 2019, like 116 WRC plus, 2020, 125, 2021, 105, 2022, 99 WRC plus. That's not great, but he still hit 284 that year and got on base at a 339 clip. And then 2023, he played in 134 games with the Twins and was a 116 WRC plus hitter. He slashed 282, 369, 391.
Yeah.
So like, he's played at a high volume fairly recently and still produce. So
no matter, even better last year. I mean, he's only increased his numbers.
Yeah. So, and then, yeah, this past year, 286, 343, 417.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he's a guy that just has consistently brought positive value to whichever ball club has picked him up. And yet they still give him like $2-3 million. I mean, the Mariners signed him for $3.5 million or whatever it was this offseason. That blows my mind because I've seen teams spend far more on far worse players or far bigger risks. I mean, Yoan Moncada just got 5.
Exactly. I don't understand that. I mean, I don't know. Maybe that's like an agent thing because he had to 25 mil with the White Sox or something like that, right? Like he had a large contract with them. So to digress that far, I mean, maybe there's something there, but it doesn't seem like he's worth it, you know? And with Solano, I feel more comfortable because, I mean, I'm a Padres fan because I lived down there for multiple years, but it's like you're picking up a guy that played in probably the second, between the Giants and the Padres, like the second or third most pitcher-friendly ballpark, and he put up those numbers. So I'm like, hey, okay, come on up.
Well, yeah, and I mean, like, at the very least, there's one tool here that I feel really good about playing, right? And so I feel good that Donovan Solano is going to hit. He's going to hit for high average. He's going to put the ball in play, which aligns very well with what my new approach is overall as an offense, what my new identity is as an offense. So that's more than I can say about Yoan Moncada. There isn't one thing about Moncada that I'm like, I feel great about.
And he's
from
29.
a positive standpoint. I feel great about him getting hurt at some point, right?
Yeah, and that's the thing. He's 29 and he's only been injured this entire time. I understand that Solano's much older, but he's much older but consistent. So I'm okay with that.
He's consistent. He's a consistent producer.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's a limited player. He's absolutely a limited player. And he probably should be a part-time player, but he does one thing exceptionally well.
Yeah. And that's what we need. Honestly, like, of course, it depends who hits before him, but
you need some projection,
something,
some
sort of life, because it's just no life right now. I should say,
well,
maybe towards the end.
You just need something to rely on.
Yeah.
Well, another thing too, I forget who said it. I think it might have been Luke Raley who said it. I might be wrong on this, but someone from the Mariners said that when one of us slumped, it felt like we all slumped last year. And Solano's like one of those guys that I think is kind of like a roadblock to that.
Mm-hmm.
That like he's at least going to be like, you can count on him to at least get things going.
And he came in clutch for the Padres multiple times.
Yeah,
last season.
Like he'll be able to flip a couple singles in a center field on a night and have a solid 2 for 4 night, get on base. He's not going to give you any value on the base pass, but he's going to get things rolling.
Mm-hmm.
Right, so.
Well, and that's the thing when Luke is playing. I mean, I'm going to say majority. I want to say more than half. Absolutely, more than half of the teams that we're playing are going to be throwing out right-handed pitchers, most likely in their starting rotation. So that starting lineup, like, where do you think we're? Because I don't really see where we're going to put him besides first. Are we really going to put Solano at second base defensively? That seems like a bad idea when you have Moore, when you have Bliss, when you have maybe Cole. After April 28th.
Yeah.
I mean,
it doesn't seem like they're entertaining the second base thing.
No,
but they have said third. Yeah, publicly. So we'll see. I mean,
What was the splits last year for? I mean, I know it's gonna be different because he's gonna be healthy, but for Polanco, who did he hit better against?
pretty sure he hit better against righties.
Against righties.
Yeah, but I think it was still like not great.
Oh,
He
not bad
had
all across the
yeah.
board. It was bad.
It was about the same, pretty
Oh,
much, against both sides. Yeah, it was. I mean, he hit 250 actually as a righty against
oh yeah.
lefties, and then 190 and 198 against righties as lefty. But he hit for far more power from the left side, which is typical for him,
Oh, and he got more than double the at bats too against righties instead of lefties. So that makes
which
sense.
is naturally going to happen. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So it's yeah. I don't know. Tell me this because I think this makes me feel better about it. His numbers seem consistently balanced for both of them, which means that injury is probably the main issue that he had last year. That was
Well,
causing the problem versus like seeing the ball where you look at Luke and it's like, oh, okay, maybe lefties are
yeah,
not your forte.
yeah. I mean, it's. I think it's just a combination of because we also saw his numbers start to decline a bit in his last couple of years in Minnesota. So I do think that some of it is just a combination of like past injuries taking a toll on the body, age, which goes hand in hand with what I just said,
Mhm.
and also I think the ballpark too. I'm not sure the ballpark is a great fit for Jorge Polanco's offensive profile, but I think there is something to be said. Now, obviously, he didn't have a lot of options, but I think there is something to be said about the fact that he did play here for a year. They declined his option, which you could see that as like kind of a slap in the face, even if it makes sense for the player or makes sense for the team.
Yeah.
You know, athletes are built differently. So, they need whatever they need for, motivation and whatnot. So he might see that as a slap in the face or whatever. Or at least you could wrap your head around, him potentially thinking that. And obviously the ballpark, not great, who's, has this reputation. Teoscar Hernandez has been very candid about how he feels about the ballpark and hitting in the ballpark.
Multiple
And
times.
yet, yeah, and
Yeah.
yet Polanco wound up choosing to come back. And we don't see that really ever.
Over the
So,
Astros.
yeah, and now the Mariners were offering him double essentially what the Astros were offering him, or at least what the last report of what they were offering him was.
Is that
Apparently they made
incentives too, or is that just up front?
that's before the incentives. It's
Okay.
almost double. So the Astros, the last reported offer from the Astros was 4, and the Mariners gave him 7 before
Okay.
incentives. The incentives can kick it up to 11.25,
Yeah.
which, by the way, if he hits those incentives, probably means that, yeah, you did
I'm
well.
happy.
You did well. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
I'm like,
yeah.
hey, welcome back,
Yeah,
twins, Jorge
yeah.
Polanco. Yeah. Go ahead and
Yeah,
play
yeah,
second
yeah.
again.
Now we're talking about like, oh, we should probably, you should probably bring him back next year. Like we're having that conversation. So yeah. So I do think that there is something to say about that, the fact that he did decide to come back, given all the factors that we just went over.
Mm-hmm.
And so maybe he feels like he's figured something out with the ballpark, or like he feels like he can't, because also, I mean, he's taken he's betting on himself here, because it's essentially a 1-year deal again. He's betting on himself to essentially reestablish his market in Seattle, which again, we don't see veteran hitters do at this stage of their career, where they're trying to go get paid again. So it's a massive risk that he's taking. But yeah, I am curious to see if there is like some level of confidence that he thinks that he can succeed in that ballpark.
Oh, it makes me wonder if, because obviously the Bregman deal, well, not, sorry, I shouldn't say the Bregman deal, since Bregman was not getting signed by the Astros, and then they brought in Isaac Paredes, and was it? No, it wasn't Shaw. Who was the Cubs prospect that they also got for Kyle Tucker?
Oh, Cam Smith.
Smith, yeah. So two third basemen, like maybe their thought was like, hey, we're gonna offer you this as, and you're gonna be our not platoon, but maybe our third or second option for third base because you are still recovering from your knee thing, and then that somehow maybe came up in discussion with the Mariners, like we'll give you third, and here's a bunch of
Yeah.
incentives with double the money. And he's like, well, guess I'm playing third now, which with whoever I say yes to.
Well, and apparently Bob Nightingale reported, and Nightingale's not super accurate, but
Speculative.
Nightingale, yeah, Nightingale did report that even after the Bregman thing, they're still planning on playing Jose Altuve in left field some. So
Really?
yeah,
Why?
so
Well, who are they going to put a
I don't.
second?
Well, I guess that's what I'm saying here is that maybe that was the plan there with Polanco.
So this was before Polanco signed with us.
No, this was after.
Oh,
This was
really?
after that.
Still
They're still planning to do that, but I assume that that was the idea
original.
there, that like that Polanco was probably going to play some third, some second when Altuve's in left.
I got you.
Yada yada
Okay.
yada. Yeah,
Okay.
maybe
Okay.
DH a little bit. Yeah,
I wonder if they are seeing. I mean, I know Otuve is getting to like those later years, but is he defensively decreased that significantly? I mean, I don't, obviously do not pay attention to the Astros like whatsoever. I'll know if they lose a guy, and I'm like, okay, cool. And then if they get a guy,
yeah.
then I cringe. But um,
He's not good at second base. I'll say that, and he's athletically declined
oh
quite a
yeah,
bit.
negative
I
six
mean,
value.
he's a bit older now, but I don't like. I mean, I guess I'm going to assume that the only times that they do play him in left field is when he's standing in front of the Crawford boxes, right? And he
Yeah,
doesn't have a ton of room that he has to operate within.
yeah,
But we've even seen like Yordan Alvarez is not good defensively, and that doesn't really get masked even in Houston. Like I've seen him misplay some balls that should be relatively easy plays, even there, and that little sector that he has to hold down. So yeah, I don't think that that's just like a this like magical area that's just going to mask any and all defensive deficiencies. So there's still probably going to be issues there, but I would assume that the only times that we see Altuve in left field are in Houston, and then maybe it's a random Tuesday afternoon game in Chicago. Whatever, we'll just roll him out there.
just see what happens.
Yeah, yeah. But still, it's weird. It is weird.
Yeah, it's
It
very
is.
weird. I don't know.
Yeah,
And hey,
yeah,
maybe Heyman's right, and it's not speculative. He knows something, or maybe he was talking to Chandler Rome, and Rome gave him the scoop of it. But it's so weird to me. It would be weird to see him in left field. He's going to look tiny in the outfield, like smaller than he already is. That's just
yeah,
going to be weird to me. But um,
yeah,
I mean, speaking of second baseman, I wanted to hit on this, but um, I, God, I brought this up beforehand, and yeah, it was Heyman, so it's not Bob Nightingale, but John Heyman. He mentioned that for second baseman Jose Iglesias, who started the OMG thing for the Mets, and he had a career year this last year. I think he hit
yeah.
337, 22 game hit streak to end it. Mets haven't even offered him a contract, and we're like, I know, and multiple people, including like Ben Ranieri, who's just on this. They're on their way to Arizona right now to go to spring training, and this guy hasn't even got an offer yet. And it's like, what I don't want to say Mariners should just jump in on this, but because I'm assuming they want some sort of budget for the trade deadline, and I completely get that, but it's like, man, yeah, he openly said this is, it hurts.
Yeah, I mean, that kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier, that it's a little bit weird that the Mariners should build their team as a run prevention ball club. That's kind of the meta of of winning games at T-Mobile Park, but also they've decided to go with Polanco, knowing that you're going to downgrade defensively in hopes of getting more out of the bat at third base. When Jose Iglesias is still out there and would be a better option at third base defensively,
For
and
similar money.
he honestly, you I don't think that the hitter that he was in New York is the hitter that he actually is. I think that we're going to see significant regression from him offensively this year. However, I still think you might be able to make a strong argument that he's a better shot to be a league average bat this year than Jorge Polanco. So
Yeah.
yeah, I do wonder if that's something that we look back on here in the next 6 months, or even shorter than that,
Mhm.
and go, man, if I could have like one do over from the off season, I mean, one, it would be just give the front office more money to spend, but whatever. But,
Yeah.
but if I could have one do over this offseason, it would be to instead give Jose Iglesias the contract that we gave Jorge Polanco.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I know he's older, but he is basically another Solano, but with more speed. I mean, I know he didn't play in 2023, but the fact that he came back after not playing for a full season to put up the numbers better than he's ever done. But 2 years ago, 3 years ago, he was putting up, he was slashing 292, 328, 380 with a 708 OPS. I know that's meh, that's league average OPS, but again, with the
But
average,
when you pair that with how good he is defensively,
exactly.
that's a good ball player.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So I just brought that up. I'm like, oh, like you know what? Like maybe the Mets are messing up right now, and like I I know we're not
Yeah.
going to do it, but it's like you guys still can. You know what I mean? And I understand there's depth
Yeah.
now at second base when you're talking about Bliss, you're talking about Cole Young maybe coming up, you talk about Dylan Moore, but I still think he's more of a utility guy. I mean, it's like,
Agreed.
ah, please.
Well, and again, like, what the hell is Jorge Polanco going to look like over at third, coming off of this injury, coming off of the surgery?
I think he's played there
And
a couple games before in
he has 180
2018.
career innings,
Oh, yeah,
and
he's a
most
lot
of
more than I
them,
thought. Okay.
but I mean, 180 innings is nothing, especially over the course of an 11-year career. And most of
Yeah.
those are isolated to just 2016. I think he played there a couple of times in 2023, and that was it.
Yeah, I think that
So,
I only saw the 2023, so I thought maybe he only had like 10 games or something like that. I was like, oh,
yeah,
okay.
here, let me look it up. I know it's all in, I know most of it is in 2016, but I'll tell you exactly what it is here in a second.
Which is still
Um,
almost 10 years ago. You know what I mean? Like we're almost a decade away from last time
yeah.
that he put in serious innings at that position. Um, and
Okay, I was actually wrong. But
oh,
it's 77, it's 77 innings in 2016 and then 103 in 2023.
oh wow.
So
Okay, so it
so
is
he
a lot
actually
more
played there a
recent.
fair amount. Played there a fair amount. Well, a fair amount. It's still 11 games started out of a 162 game season, but
You know
yeah.
what? I think Ben mentioned it last week. In fact, that he was over there covering. I'm gonna guess he was covering for Royce Lewis for an injury. That's probably it.
I assume so, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, because another guy who gets injured all the time. Um, but yeah, I don't know. Maybe
Yeah.
they'll do something
Yeah.
with it. I don't know. Last thing I wanted to touch on, because we already went over the rotation spots as far as if we lose a guy who we bringing up, or it's Hancock or Logan Evans, I guess, or maybe I mean,
Michael Morales. It
nah,
might be Blas Castano is this guy that they surprisingly added
I
to
saw
the
that.
40 man.
Yeah,
Yeah, and I didn't really have any expectations of that. So, and I mean he was starting last year, so I assume they more so view him as kind of part of their emergency starting depth. So maybe I don't know what kind of tools they've identified there with him. I don't know a lot about Castano, but yeah, maybe that's a guy to keep an eye on as well in
interesting
that
name
group.
too.
Yeah,
Castano. Yeah, I was gonna try and
we
look
we
up.
have we've seen him quite a bit like late in spring training games. That's where most of my familiarity is with him over the last couple of years.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I guess it's not. I guess not bad. Yeah, I mean, career 4.28 ERA with 112 games. That's he's been a long time down in the minors, at least. I mean, 463 innings pitched. It's experience. Just a matter of
Yeah,
getting up here.
well, it was interesting that they protected him, but not Luis Crivello, who wound up getting like major league interest from teams.
Yeah,
Crivello ended up signing with the Rangers, so yeah, so they must like Castano for some reason. So
yeah. I
I
was
don't know.
trying to look
Maybe
up
we'll
like
find out what that is.
spin or something, but I don't see anything, any stats on here. Maybe I don't know. I'm looking on Baseball Savant, so maybe they just don't have anything. Um, but yeah, we'll see. I'm just gonna say I hope nobody goes down. Let's just have another year like last year.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
know.
This is the issue with the sim in general, both pitching wise and on the position player front. And look, you can technically say this with any team, but there are teams that are better positioned to survive big injuries. But the depth on this team and really in the immediate portions of their organization, like, AAA, it's not great. It's not
Mm.
great right now. Like I don't think they're capable of surviving a significant injury this year. Like I think like anything like that, like who, like obviously Julio, but let's say even George Kirby has to go down for 2 months. I'm not convinced that that wouldn't just kill their season right there.
It would be a pretty big hit. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know who would be able to yeah, or just run prevention in general since we're so heavily reliant on them. It just makes things
Like
really complicated.
I don't think that they could even survive a Luke Rayleigh injury.
I think it's that bad. I
Like
mean, even if Solano took over full time at first base, you don't think maybe? I mean, I know he's not going to have
because
the power,
that's
but
a big left-handed power source that now you just
yeah,
suddenly don't have,
yeah.
and base running value. Like, yeah, yeah.
Okay, well, let's
So
just cross our fingers, knock on wood for no injuries this year. I just
yeah.
it makes me this whole off season's been cringe, but I've been trying to look for the positive things that we can look
Mm-hmm.
forward to going into it, and maybe some call ups. But I'm also I'm normally against like contract manipulation kind of stuff, but when it comes
Same.
to some of our guys that we have, it's like I let's wait on these guys. I don't want to start the timer now.
Well,
Like I'd rather
young especially. Like there are like
yeah.
legitimate reasons that he should not be on the major league roster to start the year. So yeah,
Then we agree. I'll just leave it at that. Like
yeah,
just I don't please don't burn his timer now because it's just not right.
yeah. I just
When
don't
you
think
could have
there's any
just
need to.
gone out and got guys like Iglesias or
Because
anybody.
yeah, with Young specifically, we're talking about a guy that has 552 good but not great plate appearances above high A. So yeah, he's not busting down the door right now. And so I think even if he has a great spring training, there's still a lot of questions that need to be answered there. And so I wouldn't blame the Mariners if they, even if again he blows their doors down over the next 6 weeks, if they're still like, I don't know, not convinced yet.
Oh, just watch. Just
So
wait. You guys are gonna bring this up, and you're gonna say this again on your guys' channel, and then you're gonna have all of Twitter coming after you or X, and it's just gonna be like, "Oh,
love it.
you Mariner organization,
Bootleg,
Stanton,
yeah,
bootleg, yeah,
you
bootlicker."
bootlicker, yeah,
What was that
yeah.
thing that they mentioned to you? Like Ty's from Toronto. Like he
Oh
doesn't
yeah,
even
yeah.
know. I
I'm
think
a
you saw my
fraud.
comment. I was just
I'm
like,
a fraud fan. Yeah,
yeah, like you're from Toronto. Like, oh, Toronto people be disgusted with that comment. Like you're from New Mexico, dude.
yeah,
Like the opposite side of the country.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah. Yeah,
that's funny.
I've bounced around the whole continent.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's like it's crazy how no matter what they're gonna attack you guys, but whatever. I mean
Yeah,
that's the
yeah,
price you pay with having the following you have, and then you have angry fans that literally are so disconnected from what really happens behind the scenes, and then what is realistic to. I mean, it's fine for us to be angry at an organization, but to be
yeah,
mad because you're trying to be optimistic and try to explain why you think they maybe are doing
yeah.
certain things, it's like shut up, guys. So
Well, I was having a conversation with my wife about this last night actually, and like, look, I'm mad about how this offseason has gone. I'm mad about how this organization is operating, and we're going to say that. We're going to be very open and very candid about how we feel about that. We're also not going to make that our entire identity of our content, because still at the end of the day,
it doesn't help.
the guys that are in camp right now, they still have to go play baseball games here in the next 6 weeks. So we're going to talk about that. And this still is a pretty good team, flawed team, but still a pretty good team that does have an actual shot at winning a division, that still has a real shot at competing for a wild card at the very least. So we're going to talk
Especially
about
right
that.
now,
Yeah,
like
and
red carpets
and
out.
part of that is why it's so frustrating how they've handled this offseason. It's so maddening that they've handled this offseason
So
like
close.
this. Yeah, but also, yeah, at the end of the day, like, there's still ball to talk about, and we're going to talk about ball.
Yeah.
And sorry if that offends.
Well, then stop. Yeah, it's like stop watching. Like
Yeah,
if
yeah,
someone's mad at you,
yeah,
just stop watching that. Don't hurt your own personal mental health listening to us talk about the realistic possibilities and decisions that were made that we not might not like, but reality is reality, and if it's just too much for you, I'm sorry. Like there's plenty of Mariner podcasts out there that I've found like on Spotify and stuff that are so negative and just like ripping on the team and how terrible it's like why are you a fan? Because if you open your eyes, there's a lot of teams that are dealing with this exact same issue right now. Like look at the Padres. Like that's a team I pay attention to closely. They're in a lawsuit among families over ownership, and they didn't do anything until like
Look at the
2 weeks
Twins.
ago. Yeah, and the Twins. And
Twins haven't done anything for the last like 3-4 acquisition periods. So
I mean, I guess you're happy with Correa and you're happy with Buxton and Royce Lewis, even though they're always injured. You have stars, but man, it just hasn't worked out. And I don't know what it is with baseball prospectus. They said they're going to be number one this season. Okay, if they're healthy, maybe, but I heard they're
the
trying to get
Central
rid of
is weird.
everybody.
So maybe
Yeah, maybe. We'll see if the White Sox can win over 100 or not lose over 100 games. But yeah, last little topic, and then we'll cut out of here.
mm,
Speaking of the Twins, actually, it's perfect little segue. But Ty France, um,
mm.
they just put out that he's per. Let me get my words together. English per Rocco Baldelli, the manager for the Twins, who took over, I believe, last season. He said specifically that Ty France is a bat that we truly believe in. We don't see that he fits a role for a platoon spot.
Mm.
Okay, so Twins just came from a full season with Carlos Santana, former Mariner. He hit like a stud, I believe. What he had like a 240 something with
And
20 some odd home
he
runs,
was a 3-win player. He won a Gold Glove. Like he
Gold
was a really
Glove,
good player. Yeah,
excellent.
yeah.
And they I just kind of let it go. They didn't bring him back. Maybe his age or something, because he's going into his age 39 and a half,
It's the
40
money.
season.
It's the money. It's the
Yep.
money.
Most okay. We'll,
Yeah,
we'll go with money.
yeah.
It'll just be. I mean,
It's absolutely
again,
the money.
I don't know,
Yeah,
but
yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, I
but
mean,
now
they're
bring
trying
in
they're trying to
France
sell the
and-
ball club. Apparently, they're going to
Yeah.
sell in April. So like they haven't spent anything the last, again, like I said, like the last 2 or 3 acquisition periods.
Aren't they
so.
trying to sell it to? This is off topic, but aren't they trying to sell it to the guy who wants to start a team in Utah? Is that the
Is
guy?
that the same guy?
I
Is
think
that
it's
the same guy
guy.
that owns the Suns?
I think it is.
I think it's the Ishbias, that family. I don't know a ton about that.
Okay.
I don't know if he want. I don't know if they want to start a team in Utah, but yeah. I think the Ishbias are involved in that. I'm not 100% sure on that though.
But that's funny. I don't know if this is gaslighting from Baldelli, just like Jerry was to the fans just a couple weeks ago. But they're saying like he's our guy. Like we trust in his bat. And I was looking at like the Savant Illustrator. I was looking at his numbers, and I'm just like, what the hell do you guys see that I don't? Because
Again, it's because of the money.
money.
It's like yeah, of course he's our guy. Of course, we really believe in Ty
because
France.
there's nothing left.
who got DFA'd last. Yeah, because there's nothing left.
Yeah,
this is
and
the
he found
one
out
guy
through
that we
Twitter.
actually signed this offseason. Yeah.
So I know, because I saw that quote and it was right before we got on here, and I was looking at I was like, all right, let me go look at the stats real quick, and I'm like, what am I missing here? Like, why did they're so like into him? And I couldn't find anything. I was looking at Solano, better numbers. I was looking at Rayleigh, better numbers from against righties, obviously. But I was just like,
and by the way, if they really liked him, they would have given him more than $1 million. That isn't even guaranteed to him. So
that's true. I didn't see how much they signed him for, actually. I never saw.
Yeah,
that.
I think it's like 1 million flat, and it's not even guaranteed. Pretty sure that's what I saw.
Is it? But it's not
basically
a minor league contract.
No,
though,
but
is
it's basically a glorified minor league contract. So,
ouch.
yeah.
Okay,
So-
well, it looks like, I mean, I don't know what it is with Seattle Times. We'll end it here, but I've been seeing nothing but Seattle Times writers and beat writers talking about Brash, and they're like, throwing his first full bullpen. He's working out. He's doing great since his Tommy John and all this stuff. It's like, are we sure? Like, or are they just hyping up?
I hope
hoping?
so.
Like,
I hope so. Like, I hope they're right.
it wasn't that long ago.
It's very hard to believe.
Yeah.
Now, did we ever get clarification on if it was actual Tommy John or if it was the brace?
I thought it
Because
was
like a
Tommy
lot of
John.
guys are, because a lot of guys are getting that brace put in, and that is a quicker recovery.
Well, but the Tommy John
So
is required if the tendon snapped. If you have the brace, the tendon still has the tendon or the
right,
Tommy
but
John threading has to be in place.
yeah, but I'm pretty sure it never snapped because remember they kept on like trying it, trying to get ramp him up, trying and trying and trying, and eventually they were like, all right, he's gonna have the procedure.
I'm
So I
gonna
don't
go
know.
to my trusted source on Fangraphs and see what he's out for.
So I don't know. So maybe because I mean, like on the flip side, like Jackson Coar had Tommy John right around the same time as Brash, and we're
Where
hearing
is
nothing
he?
about Coar. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Now everyone's different and recovers different. Blah 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 blah. Blah. But yeah, it is a very optimistic timeline that Jerry has set for Brash to return. Go ahead.
So I'm going on Fangraphs, but they haven't been wrong very often. Um,
Yeah.
so both of them Tommy John surgery, not internal brace, and they specifically put in the injury and the surgery, whatever it is, what the surgery or procedure was. But that's the
Mhm.
thing. Jackson Carr surgery was on March 15th, 2024.
Mhm.
Matt Brash, who is only 2 years younger than Jackson Carr, had his on May 8th, 2024. 2 months after Jackson Carr, and he's only 2 years
Yeah.
younger. Like if
And so
Jackson Carr was like 32, I'd be like, okay,
yeah.
okay.
Well, and you know
But he's
what I've talked
26.
about on the show, yeah, and what I've talked about on the show with regards to Brash over the last couple of weeks is like, all right, cool. I hope he's back. I hope he's actually able to make it back in time. That would be great.
Yeah.
Awesome. Love Matt Brash. Um, but yeah, that feels very optimistic. Anything you get from him this year should be viewed as a bonus. And frankly, there's going to be a lot of re-injury risk because that is an incredibly violent delivery
Well,
that I'm sure he's going to keep intact because that's how he's most effective.
it's vicious. It's
Yeah.
vicious, man.
So,
I love seeing him on the on the mound and everything. But yeah, like you're saying, like that's it is a violent release, and without that internal brace, because the whole idea of the internal brace is just that it's like it's an extra protection and I don't know, stitching, like keeping everything together, and that is the reason why Shohei is so positively viewed going into the next season, because now that once it's going to be fully healed, like it's not going to re-tear. Glasnow, I think, had the same thing, and look how he did. Although I heard some soreness going on, so I don't know.
yeah. So, I mean, again, we'll see on Brash.
Yeah,
I hope everyone is right that he is going to be back sooner rather than later.
yeah,
But yeah,
we'll keep it
I have
positive.
my reservations. I have my reservations.
Oh, that's a disclaimer before everybody yells at you. You just support the organization. They're
Right,
gaslight,
right, right.
whatever.
Yeah, yeah,
Canadian,
yeah.
you
Right,
Blue Jay
right.
fan, whatever.
I'm a fraud.
Hey, you know what? We've been talking about this. At least everybody else who's been on this on the Mariner Monday.
Uh-huh.
How can we get you to opening day? What do we need to do to get you to come down and let's do a live thing and we'll
So here's the issue.
okay.
So as a permanent resident of Canada, I
Okay.
need what is called a PR card in order to be able to travel. Well, to be able to come back into the country
Into the
after I leave
country.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there was a mail strike that happened here a couple months ago. You might have heard about it with the with Canada Post,
Uh-huh.
and so yeah, my
They lose
timeline
it.
to get my no, but my timeline to get my PR card and everything like that has been pushed way back because they have so many submissions that they have to sift through and all this stuff, and then after that I have to renew my passport still.
Oh,
So yeah, I legally cannot leave the country right now.
wait, so they can't give you because you're permanent resident. I was gonna say, so getting into the
Yeah.
US it's easy because you can just show birth certificate or whatever and then you're good to go.
Yeah, if I absolutely had to get into the U.S., I could.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
yeah,
I think you
but
do. I think this is a must. I think you absolutely have to be here for opening day. And we'll find a way. We'll find a way to get you
I,
back.
I'm hoping to be able to get all of this figured out before Ichiro's weekend.
Okay, cool.
So
Well,
we'll
at
see.
least that's
We'll
something
see.
to look forward to.
Yeah,
Yeah. All
yeah,
right.
yeah.
Well, Everybody, thank you for joining us on this podcast. If you guys are interested in checking out Locked On Mariners, if you do not know their channel, please go check it down in the description below. Dane Gonzales on Twitter. And I do not know your links for Blue Sky, but we'll put that down below. I know it's a long.
It's just tdg.bsky.social, but
there
yeah,
we go.
Just if you're on Blue Sky, just search TDG.
Okay, sounds good. And check out their information. They're pretty well connected, so they'll be able to know a lot of Mariners stuff. Thank you for coming on, man. I really do appreciate it.
Appreciate you having me.
It's been a long time, so hopefully we'll have you back, and I'll actually be back in the studio, and we can talk more ball.
Sounds good.
All
Anytime.
right. Thank you, man. See you guys.